welcome to the Painted Podcast. My name is Marie St. Sandy. I am your host, your makeup artist, art mistress, curator, whatever you want to call me. And today I'm joined by our very special guest. It is Salam Kitty.
Hello.
So I like to let the guests kind of introduce themselves a little bit. So I'll ask you your name, your pronouns, where you're from and or based, and what it is that you do.
So I am Salam Kitty. My actual name is Mojxmma and my pronouns are they or she. I'm a DJ and promoter, co-founder of Mojxmma, and I also have a community group for queer people of colour called Exhale. I'm from Edinburgh, but I'm based in Glasgow.
Lovely. So what seems to me is that obviously your kind of area of expertise is probably the organisation of events. So when did that kind of start? So maybe take us back to, say, when you started Mojxmma. When did that start, and what was the kind of the aim or the mindset kind of going into that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like when I was younger, I loved going out. I always went out like 3 times a week or something when I was a student. And I think, 2019, I went to Berlin for a few months. And it sounds so cliche, like you go to Berlin and you go to the clubs and you're like, oh, this is so much better. Just growing up in Edinburgh was obviously very white, and the queer scene was not really for me. Like the type of music that the clubs played, just the way that I felt in those spaces, I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel like it was like a place that actually was for me, even though it was meant to be for queer people. And then going to Berlin, they had like so many different types of parties for different communities. So I went to like a queer Arab party. I went to like ballroom events for the first time, and just like the general kind of techno scene there too is just much more free, I guess, in terms of just feeling comfortable there, even if you're different from the other people who are there. So yeah, when I came back to Edinburgh, I was kind of like, oh, this feels really shit and boring. And I kind of recognised the gap for something for queer people of colour specifically. And my friend from high school, we just decided...
And my partner, funnily enough.
No, I'm like, should I say that too?
Never.
So we went to high school together, and I think we were just speaking about it, and we were like, yeah, we just should try and put on a party. So this was like the end of 2019 we were talking about it, and we had our first party in February 2020, which was obviously before lockdown. So we had the one in February. We'd literally planned one for April, and then the whole world shut down. And we obviously thought like, oh, maybe we could have it in another month or something. And then it was like almost 2 years or whatever the timeline was till things opened up again. And we both moved to Glasgow in that time as well. So yeah, but actually moving to Glasgow ended up working out a lot better for us, because in Edinburgh there wasn't like many venues that we could use that felt like we could actually curate the audience. So we chose Wee Red Bar the first time in Edinburgh. And then in Glasgow when we moved, it was when Bonjour was just opening, so that was like really perfect timing.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. It's interesting as well, the comparison to Berlin, because I had noticed when I went to Berlin, I went to one drag show there, and it was on a Tuesday night at the exact same time that I used to perform. So there was one in Glasgow that I used to do on a Tuesday night, and so I was looking at it as, oh, this is the Berlin equivalent. And as you say, it was 10 times more vibrant and experimental, and there was room for people to do different things. So obviously you felt a strong need to create that space yourself. So when it comes to like, say, the actual, or maybe we'll start from like the build up. what is like your mental kind of process like? What is your mindset? Because organizing an event, obviously, there's a lot to take into account, and you know, do you give yourself quite a long timeline, or do you organize it quite close to the time, or?
I think it depends. Like, I don't know if it's because I'm an Aries or whatever, but
Oh, me
I.
too.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Jam's got a type with friends and partners. Yeah, I think sometimes I just get an idea and I can't let go of it. Like, as soon as something comes into my head, I'm like, I have to do this now. Like, it
Mm-hmm.
just feels like a vibrant like flame that I just have to like run with. So if it's like an idea for an event that I get at like 3 in the morning, I'm just like, okay, I need to do this, and then I'll just like start booking things and going for it. I don't really give myself much time to think about it, but with Mojxmma, we did decide initially to do them like bi-monthly, and then that gave us time. Like, we knew that there was going to be one kind of in every 2 months, and then last year they were a bit more spread out just with our capacity, so we did have more time to plan, and it does work better that way because it does get quite intense when you're like trying to do a lot of things at once.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, time management is probably like a key skill when it comes to event planning. And I think as well, it's something that you also have to merge at times with the creativity as well. And I think a lot of people struggle with that as well. Like, would you say you've always been a fairly organized person, or was that maybe something that you learned over time?
Yeah, I think I have always been quite organised. I'm quite like a control freak sometimes, where I like to know exactly what's happening, and I think it's easier for me to just kind of like decide exactly what I want to do and run with it, because in my head it's not that methodological. Is that a word? I kind of am just like, okay, I need to do these things, and I'll just do it without really like thinking too much. In terms of like structural things like booking a venue and stuff, like all that stuff kind of is quite inherent to me just because I've been doing it a lot. But when it comes to like themes and thinking about concepts, I try to take more time. And Jam and I, usually when we've got a night, we'll like create a Pinterest board together and put things, ideas that we want, and like go back and forth quite a bit about it, about the exact vision we want to do.
Yeah, well, that's interesting as well. Obviously, like you said that you like to be organized and you like to be in control. So how do you personally find balancing that collaborative sense? Because that's something I really struggle with it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the stuff I work on, I completely work on it on my own because I'm like, I know what my vision is. I know how to get there. And at times you do like have to just, particularly if you're working or whatever it is, you have to surrender a little bit of that control, and that can be a really hard thing to let go of.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I do find it hard, but I think obviously Jam and I have been working on this for like a few years together, and we know like what each other wants
Mm.
from the parties, and we kind of know how each other works as well. So I think we can work quite well together. If it was someone that I didn't know so well, or like doing it again, starting from scratch now, it might be a bit different. I think if there's more people, so I'm also part of a collective called Wish Wish, and that works quite well because there's four of us. So we kind of, I guess I feel less hung up about me having to do everything because there is more people, and we're kind of like faceless. Like, most
Mm.
people don't actually know who's behind that group, um, and people are always surprised when I say I'm part of it. So I think that kind of takes some of the pressure off too, because obviously, like when your name's on something and you're presenting yourself like physically, then you do have much more attachment to it.
Yeah, agreed. I think like when your face definitely is, on the event, it is a lot more pressure because you do feel obviously that there is obviously that much stronger link to yourself. But I often find that those projects, they tend to probably be the most creatively satisfying, annoyingly enough, even though they are more pressure. Um, but it is as well, it's nice as well, like obviously you've got the balance there of having events where you have like a lot of control and you have events where you can have more of a step back. So you've got like that real balance of skills there, I guess, which I imagine teaches you different things.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of event planning with the parties for Mojxmma, like, have really brought like so much experience to me, and also just kind of knowing how things work and the prices of things and stuff, which is so valuable. So now that I'm doing Exhale, which is like for queer people of colour, but a sober, social, kind of more like well-being focused group with events, I plan those events alone, and I find that really difficult to kind of give up control on that, because I've kind of said, you know, if people want to get involved and stuff, they can, but then people just kind of come to me and say, oh, if you need any help, let me know. But I'm like, I actually don't know what I could say I need help on, because when you just have an idea and you're just kind of going with it, I'm like, I don't know how I could get someone to help with this.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean there. It's because I find that so often. It's even sometimes like when particularly when I was setting up Sandy Vision and stuff, I remember like Jam was asking me like what all can I do to help, and I was like, really the only thing I need help with is pinning up my backdrop. And then after that it's chill. It's like, you know, because you do have like your own processes and these like kind of safety blankets, and I think those are really really helpful in terms of like stress management. um so obviously, yeah, stress management is like, that's obviously, I'm assuming that's something you either thrive on stress or you learn to just really contain it.
Yeah, the stress thing. I do get stressed quite a lot, but I think maybe I do strive on stress a little bit. Like, it gives me a bit of adrenaline to push through, because sometimes, like, some days I wake up and then I'm like, oh my god, I have all this stuff to do, and I'll literally just like do it within the first hour I wake up. Like, don't even brush my teeth or eat. I'm like, I have to do this right now. So that kind of works, but then it's also really not good for you to do that.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, recently I like have obviously I've been exploring methods to reduce stress. Things like obviously exercise and diet and stuff like that, and those are really really good. Because on the day of Sandy Vision, I went for a jog that morning, and honestly, like nothing could have touched me the entire day. It was so strange, because the one I did the year before, I did an audiovisual show in the 13th Note before it closed, and I was sick. Like I was like, and I was ill after it as well. I was ill for like 2 weeks because it was so stressful to put on. And it's, yeah, I think it's all about finding your coping mechanisms, which then makes me wonder, well, how do you unwind? How do you switch off?
Well, I did, you saying about like going for a run before your gig. I did used to do like yoga in the morning and do it almost every morning, and I feel like that did really help, because it just made me take that time for myself first thing and kind of like get calm, so I wasn't just waking up with all these like stresses and thoughts in my head. So I do feel like I do need to get back into that, because that was really helpful for me. It just gave me that routine of the day, like, okay, I've done that now I can like actually like brush my teeth and get ready, instead of just getting lost in some work that I need to do, and then the whole day's kind of thrown off. But to unwind now, I guess like what do I do to unwind? In the winter, I love having a bath. That's like my thing. I'm like, okay, get a nice bath bomb, like try and pamper myself, get nice food. I love food, to be honest. That's probably like, I'm a big comfort eater, um, especially with sweet stuff. And I'm like obsessed with watching Charmed these days. Like, nothing makes me happier to know that I can like go home and watch Charmed. Like, that's my thing. I'm like, okay, If I can go home and watch Charmed, everything will be okay. And if I don't have time to watch Charmed, that's when things get out of
Things get,
control.
yeah. I know, it's these little escapist kind of moments, I think, that do help you to switch off from everything. So you mentioned as well earlier that you were curating a sober safe space. That's something that I feel like we don't have enough of, especially in queer environments, because so much of queer culture, and I'm speaking from experience with drag as well, so much of the work you do in drag is centered around alcohol. So, what was it that prompted you to curate that?
Yeah, I think like so I did nutrition for my undergrad degree, and to kind of get a job in nutrition, they were all saying to me, you have to like volunteer at community organisations and stuff. So I did that for a while, and just kind of seeing the way that they operated, like these community groups. So it was sort of like um, community cooking clubs, and so they'd all cook together and have a meal together, and it was just like so nice. It was people from all walks of life who were probably kind of like quite lonely outside of this, coming together, like a group of people that never would have interacted before, and this just seemed to like really get a lot out of it. And I thought there's not really many spaces where people can just go and meet new people and just kind of like enjoy themselves and not have to spend money, maybe learn a new skill or try something new. That's not a club. The club is like the kind of only place that you go to meet new people. You wouldn't really like walk into a cafe and sit down at a random person's table. So yeah, it was just kind of from that, working and volunteering in community groups and just being like, we don't have anything for queer people of colour. Like there is community groups, LGBT community groups, and ones for like different ethnic groups and stuff, but nothing specifically for that group.
Yeah. Yeah, and it seems as well, obviously, you've got like a very clear awareness as well of these gaps. Um, and I think as well, it's like you also have the proactive mindset as well to actually go, I'm going to fill that gap. Because so many of us, I think, would, and I've been there myself where I've sort of gone like, oh, like this doesn't exist or that doesn't exist. And I'll just sit on the couch and complain about it, but I won't actually get off my arse and actually make it. It's where do you think that proactiveness comes from? Is it something that's always been there? Or is it something that maybe bubbled up at a certain point in your life, or?
I don't know, I think I didn't really realise this until the last couple of years, but I think I was always quite independent growing up, like even as a child. I was the only child for like 10 years, so I was used to kind of doing things on my own and not kind of relying on someone else. And then even when my sibling was born, it was like I was the older sibling, so I was like taking care of them and stuff. So I think I've always been quite independent, and just like coming from a working class background and stuff, I've always had to work, like always worked through uni and worked through my masters, and just kind of used to just having to like put in quite a lot of work to get what I want. And I think, I don't know, in terms of like the proactiveness to fill in a gap, I think it just comes from feeling like I need to just try it. I'm always like, when I see someone else doing it, I get inspired. So for Mojxmma, it was like seeing the places in Berlin and being like, if they can do it, I can do it type of thing. And seeing like other community organisations with Exhale. If it was something completely new, like I have had ideas to do other stuff and I've not felt comfortable doing it. I think it's like having that inspiration where you just feel like overcome by it, like you have to use that inspiration.
Yeah, and that's interesting because to me it seems that almost like just like an urge, just a complete uncontrollable urge within your body, that it is like I have to. It's not even like it's an option, like, oh, I could do this. It's like, no, I need to do this. And I think it's like it's a very rare thing. I've not seen it in very many people, certainly. Um, and I think as well, especially to do it independently, because a lot of people, they maybe try and enter spaces and they try and work their way up and stuff. It actually seems more like it's like you'll kind of slot yourself in with your own idea and project, which obviously I think is a really bold and brave thing to be able to do. Um,
That's probably just the control freak in me. Like, I can't trust anyone else to do this. I have to do it myself.
No, I get that. I totally get that. I mean, that's kind of been my thing with audiovisual. Like, I got inspiration from watching things like Eurovision and Sacha Velour and, tours and stuff like that. And you're thinking, God, why is there not stage set up? And it is very, very rewarding when you do curate these things, and as well as like, I think it taps into, like, for me, certainly it taps into my ego a little bit. I'm like, I'm the only one doing this, like, that's maybe like, but I think is purely a side effect. So obviously I think it's very clear as well that you do work to your core values as well. And do you find that obviously that really carries through to the end result?
I think so. I think it does get a bit difficult sometimes, though, especially as you grow. So, as I said, we started Mojxmma just like in wee red bar. It was mostly just people we knew that were there. I think there was maybe like 5 randomers max or something.
Mm.
So it has really grown now, where we'd go and like a lot of the people that are there we don't know, and it's just been advertised publicly and stuff, and we've got bigger budget now and everything. And I think sometimes when you do grow and when you have been doing something for a while, you can get maybe a bit like carried away, or think about, with Exhale or even with DJing as well, like sometimes opportunities have come to me and I've been excited and just said yes, and then later on kind of thought, oh, maybe I shouldn't have worked with those people, or maybe I shouldn't have like been in that space because it doesn't exactly align with my values. So I think the important thing is just to be reflective. Like, we all do things and then we look back and think, okay, maybe that wasn't the best thing to do, but as long as you learn from it and you're able to reflect.
Yeah, apologies to our listeners if you can hear that random man shouting outside. There is a football game on. I've never seen an episode of football, so I wouldn't know. City centre of Glasgow. So let's move on to like the DJing as well. So obviously music, that's obviously a huge part of your creativity as well. And I imagine for every event, your thought process for what you're going to put out is different, or would you say you have certain little tricks and formulas or whatever that you kind of rely on, or what would be the case?
In terms of DJing?
Yeah.
I think it depends like what kind of night I'm playing at. So for like Mojxmma or something kind of more similar that's like cutie pop or queer focused, I usually play quite like fun edits, and because I know that that's kind of what gets the crowd going. But if I'm booked for Exit or something that's like more techno focused, I will go down the more like experimental route. But I quite like having those two different sides, and sometimes I'll merge them as well. Like the set I did today for Clyde Built Radio was like such a mishmash of loads of different genres, but I think that's nice. I think it really depends who I'm playing with, like what time my set is at, because if you're in the beginning you obviously can't go too hard.
Crazy. Yeah.
So it really depends where, I think.
Yeah. And would you say that there's like a strong community of DJs in Scotland as well that you've managed to sort of integrate in? I'm trying to relate it to my own experience, obviously there's like a drag scene and stuff. Mm-hmm. What would you say the DJ scene is like? Because I've heard different stories from different scenes. Like I hear quite a lot about the comedy, like the stand-up comedy scene, and that seems to be very, very different outlook to what drag is like. Just basically, what is the DJ scene like?
I mean, I guess when I think about it, like in Edinburgh, none of my friends were DJs. They were just like friends that I made from other places. But in Glasgow, like all my friends are DJs
DJ.
basically,
Yeah.
because that's how we managed to meet through Bonjour and through going to these events. And everyone does kind of know each other, so I guess there is a community. But I mean, I don't know what it is like in drag, but maybe like less sense of. I don't know if there's more of like a sisterhood in drag, or
I mean, you could say if you are like an optimist, I suppose you could say as sisterhood. If you are a cynic, like I am, it kind of feels like high school sometimes. But what I find often with drag is that like in order to be popular and successful in drag, you have to sort of be in everyone's business, or you have to keep in touch with everybody, and you have to be at events all the time. With DJing, do you find that there's maybe room to basically just fuck off for a few months, or do you have to constantly be showing up?
Yeah, that's the thing I've struggled with. I felt like, oh, for people to support me and for people to like remember who I am and stuff, I have to show up to these events and I have to network and I have to get out there, and it is exhausting, especially like not everyone wants to be out every weekend till 3 a.m. Like, I'm getting old now, so I do feel the same. I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily true or not, or if it's just like how we feel inside of having to feel like you need to be out there all the time. But I do think it does make a difference when you actually go out and support nights, not even just for like to show face type of thing, but also to get inspiration yourself.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many nights I've been to recently where I'm like, oh wow, this is actually feels really like fresh and different, and it's given me new ideas and made me feel like I want to advance. Because I think if you just get stuck in your own practice and you're not around other people doing the same stuff, you'll just kind of be stuck in that box, and it'll be kind of harder to grow.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting as well, like, you'll probably find it interesting looking at certain events and nights and things, what the environment is like. Because one of the things, so I've been to Mojxmma maybe twice, I think, at the time of recording anyway. And the one thing is, like, I've always found from my clubbing experience, like, which is fairly limited, I'll say, like, I always felt really intimidated in these environments and stuff. When I went to Mojxmma, I was like, oh, this is so chill. Like, it was friendly as well. And I think it must be interesting as well to see how the vibes maybe sort of change from night to night, and depending on, I don't know what, like, kind of thinking about what factors influence that. I always wonder, like, especially when, because I've noticed it at certain drag shows as well, you get certain audiences that are just really, really engaged, particularly in Edinburgh. You're sort of wondering, what is it that the organisers are doing to curate and maintain that atmosphere, especially when so much of that is in the hands of the attendees, like.
I know, I have thought about this myself, because sometimes I have walked into nights and been like, oh, I feel so uncomfortable, like I feel like everyone is looking each other up and down, and like it doesn't feel friendly. And then other nights I've been like, oh my god, everyone's so nice, this is like so fun. I think part of it is the promoters, like sometimes I've been at nights and the promoters kind of act like they're too good for everyone, and like they're like famous and kind of like us v them type of thing. But I try not to be that way in Mojxmma. Like, I'll always like just speak to random people, and like we take photos of everyone in the crowd and stuff, and like try and make everyone feel like they're part of it, whereas like other nights just kind of take photos of the performers and are like stuck in their bubble together.
Yeah.
Which I don't like disagree with. I'm not saying everyone has to go out and speak to everyone, but I think that does make a difference. And even just like the type of music and stuff as well, like if it's, you know, more type of music that's like people can sing along to or dance to more, then they'll probably be in a more kind of friendly mood. I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose really like what you have to, I suppose, balance is it's the offering really. It's what is actually happening when you're there. What is the interaction like? You know, how accessible or not accessible are you? You know, and factoring things in like obviously the photographs, photo ops, all that kind of stuff. That clearly, obviously, just makes all the difference, I suppose, in the overall environment. And actually, that's something I hadn't even really thought of. I'm now, because now I'm like, oh, well, if I put on a show, I'm like, oh, maybe I should have like some sort of projection photo op, you know? It's to
I
make
think it is
people...
different for like drag shows and club nights though.
Oh, 100%, because with drag shows, obviously, it is very much, this is a stage. I am here, and you are here to, like, politely, you are here to watch. But I do agree with what you, like, the way that you do it. It's like I do try my best to speak to everybody and make myself accessible. And I think it's because I genuinely don't go out on the scene so much. When I do go out, I get really excited, like, hi. So, as opposed to sort of summarise, what is the plan moving forward? Or is there a plan moving forward? Or...
I think what I'm doing so far seems to be going quite well for me, and I'm enjoying it. So I think more of the same. We did say we'll have our last Mojxmma of the year and potentially forever, but I think we'll have another one. I think sometimes you just get stressed and start to like panic a bit, but I feel having some space and just like having a holiday and stuff, taking some time away, I'm ready to keep going. I'm just looking forward to like seeing how we can grow next and keep the community at the heart of it with everything we do. I had a good discussion at the weekend, which was about like cutie POC experiences in clubbing and kind of the more welfare aspect of it. So I'm hoping to look into that a bit more and incorporate that into future events.
Yeah, and that's, I suppose that's the sort of thing. It's like obviously you take time away and you learn new things and you grow, and then all of a sudden you find yourself coming back with this, I suppose, these tools and this desire to sort of keep expanding. And it sounds like it'll be very exciting. I think as well, obviously, to just enjoy what you're doing in the moment, it's so important. I think so many of us are focused on what's next, and I'm very much like that because I do project-based work now. You're always living in the future, but sometimes it really is just that important to enjoy where you are, what it is you're doing, and not actually really care about what's going to happen next, because I think sometimes you'll find that will probably surprise you and you'll end up jumping a lot further than you thought.
Yeah, exactly. And as I said, I'm usually just like getting ideas popping in my head and running with it rather than thinking about long-term plans.
Yeah. Lovely. Well, it's been lovely to speak to you, and thank you so much for letting me paint your face and for talking on the podcast. Where can people find you on social media?
So on Instagram, I am at salamkitty.x. I don't have Twitter or X.
And you're not doing dances on TikTok?
No. I have TikTok, but I'm not doing anything on there. So just Instagram and SoundCloud, which you'll find in the link tree on my Instagram.
Lovely. Well, as always, you can find me, or have I ever plugged my Instagram? I don't really think to do it because I'm like, well, this is my podcast. You all know who I am. But stay tuned to obviously follow the rest of the Painted by Marie series, and stick around for a little preview of next week's podcast. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.
I would say I've been doing drag for years now, just going at clubbing. I put a lot of effort into my looks. Most of my looks, I usually get the details down when I'm getting ready, like in front of the mirror. I'm like, okay, what do I do today?